Um, Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Radhika Ganesh, and I'm very happy to welcome all of you to the third episode of our talk show, Caste Conversations We Deny. Um, it's been a very educational few weeks for us at Young People for Politics and Ekpotli Redki putting together this talk show. Because even though caste is something that all of us in the collectives talk about regularly, it's part of our everyday activism, we haven't really taken the time to step back and sort of analyze caste in our own lives. As a collective of equal parts, Savarna and community members, it has been a conscious decision for all of us to check our privilege at every point in our collectives. When we make a next step, we're constantly checking our privilege. But to be able to put together a show where a Savarna body, a privileged voice, is asking questions to understand in a very public manner what it means to be Savarna in India. And what it means to engage with marginalization, oppression, and everything that comes with entrenched casteism has been very humbling. So we're very excited to host this talk show. Thank you all for joining us. Before I introduce my guest, a very dear friend of mine, and someone who has been extremely instrumental in giving me the courage I needed to sort of carry on in this path. I want to speak about something that has stirred the conscience of not only Tamil Nadu, but India and Indians everywhere globally. Following the brutal police murder of George Floyd, somehow, because of the movements that erupted, public imagination was captured or public attention was captured, and that the conversation around police brutality continued. And right at that point, something extremely unfortunate happened in Tamil Nadu. The brutal police custodial sexual assault and murder of father-son duo Jayaraj and Benix has set Tamil Nadu in a state of complete rage. This rage against police brutality is righteous and long brewing. What happened to Jayaraj and Benix is unconscionable, and the demand for justice will not stop until justice is found. Our collectives, Young People for Politics and Ekpotli Redki Kani Neelam, stand firmly in support of the family and join the fight of thousands in peacefully avenging the loss of those two lives. This police custodial rape and murder of Jayaraj and Benix, through the voice of many celebrities and influencers from Tamil Nadu, finally found space in national media. Indians from across the globe have joined the fight and have pressured the usually lackadaisical government that never acts on such things. However, this platform on this show, where we make conscious efforts to unpack India's entrenched casteism, it will be a great miss if I do not point out the sorry ignorance, denial, hypocrisy, whatever we want to call it, of the progressive supporters. Police brutality is not new to India, definitely not new to Tamil Nadu. No, COVID-19 stress has nothing to do with it. The fact that Tamil Nadu is a police state is well acknowledged everywhere. Thousands suffer draconian brutality in the hands of police each year. There are national and international reports to give us the stats. Those same reports vociferously point out how majority of victims of police brutality are Dalits and Adivasis. This is not to critique or reprimand those who have spoken up for Jayaraj and Benix, not at all. Thank God you spoke up. This is merely to point out the caste blindness of the Savarna. We are blind to the plight of the oppressed, and it is time we educate ourselves and agitate equally for all losses. May the souls of thousands of nameless Dalits and Adivasi victims rest in peace along with Jairaj and Benix, knowing we will avenge them as well. Atrocities against Dalits and Adivasis in Tamil Nadu is not new. And that's why today's conversation will add to our educational process. I am extremely pleased to invite our guest. Before I do, just a quick format. This is on the digital platform, so if we get disconnected, if we are not audible, please bear with us. Post your questions to our speaker in the comment section below. This will be a bilingual conversation. Nanga Tamil, English, mati eppadi comfortable irko appadi pesuvom. But we have a committed group of volunteers and friends who are translating lifetime on the comment section. So please keep track of that. And I will also translate once in a while. If you have questions that you're posting in other people's watch parties, please send them to us as well. So this is Caste Conversations We Deny, episode 3. Intersectional feminism. Whose politics or whose personal is political enough, with my very dear friend, comrade, Sem Mallar. Hi, Sem Mallar.
Hi, Radhika. Good evening. Good evening to you and good evening to all the participants of Ek Potli Reiki and young people for politics. So I'm glad actually, Ek Potli Reiki, Radhika and other volunteers are doing this. I'm really glad to be part of this whole thing that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Sem Mallar, I think as my first personal interaction with Dalit feminism happened very late in my life. And you have been a very strong sort of go back to, every time I have questions, I know I've come to you, we've engaged and we've discussed about it. I want to start off with the statement I made. I know, when we discussed the statement just some time ago before we started the live, you talked to me about the 4 Dalit lives that were lost during manual scavenging in the same district of Tamil Nadu, Thoothukudi. So would you like to make a statement and start from there?
Yeah. So as Radhika rightly pointed out, how we actually deny this conversation when she was actually talking to me regarding the series that she's planning to do. She was mentioning about how this privileged section or the larger society is conveniently denying the fact that we need to engage even in this 2020 caste matters actually, but we consciously deny those conversations. So that's very important. Before coming back to what Radhika was raising, we were having an informal conversation about the thing which has happened to the people who were engaged in manual scavenging, 4 of them from the same district, which is being denied. But before that, I would like to really mention a note why people will have 2 different dimensions when we are discussing this thing, Dalit feminism or feminism on a larger thing, caste or intersectionality. So why Radhika should do it might be a question to a group of people. So I'm sure about it, knowing the psyche of people. And why Sem Mallar is actually having a discussion with Radhika on this might also be a concern of few people. The privileged or the Savarna that she's talking about, that Radhika is talking about, will have, why should Radhika discuss about caste? There are so many other things, so many other important things which are happening. She can discuss about COVID, she can discuss about economic downfall. Why is she discussing about caste? Might be a concern, one. Other thing, as I said, ஏன் செம்மலர் ராதிகா கூட caste பத்தி பேசணும் அப்படின்ற ஒரு கேள்வியும் வரும். So maybe in the course of discussion, definitely you will get to know why we are doing this, one. And the major call of Dalits as such, being me representing larger marginalized, underprivileged people. So the major concern, major concern என்னவா இருக்குன்னா, we wanted to be mainstream. We wanted to travel with everybody. Not that I will be isolate. Sem Mallar will only fight for Dalit feminism, that she wants to isolate herself. No, not at all. We wanted to really be mainstream. And I'm glad that there are friends, though they are privileged in various other sections, English education or being born in a Brahmin community. That doesn't matter. When somebody is working for equality, of course we join hands with them. Like, you know, we work in solidarity with that notion. I mean, even Radhika pointed out, knowing the reality, knowing the truth. No, I mean, she's very honest in terms of expressing point blank that she's privileged, and all of us are. என்னையே எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா கூட, though I'm coming from a Dalit background, of course I had an opportunity to have English education, so I'm privileged in that sense. I'm not representing the entire Dalit women of this country or the Tamil Nadu. சோ அந்த ஒரு புரிதலோட தான் நானுமே இந்த கான்வர்சேஷனை தொடங்கணும்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். சோ எல்லாருமே நம்ம எந்தெந்த வகையில நம்ம ப்ரிவிலேஜ்டா இருக்கிறோம் அப்படின்றது வந்து நம்ம யோசனை பண்ணிக்கிட்டே இருக்கணும் அப்படிங்கிறது ஒண்ணு. And again, coming back to the Thoothukudi thing, like, of course, as she pointed out, like, you know, even I'm not denying to the fact that it is police brutality is like, you know, it's so common. It's a police state, as she said. Tamil Nadu la vandu police atrocity ndu vandu enoda post graduation mudichu I was getting trained in a human rights organization. Ange irundhe police torture பத்தி தெரிஞ்சிக்கிட்டு அந்த ஒரு சூழ்நிலையில தான் I right now I'm teaching. So ana police torture அப்படின்னும் போது I just want to point out media also wants to project something, then it projects. இந்த நேரத்துல இத நியூஸ் ஆகணும் அப்படின்னு நினைச்சாங்கன்னா அந்த போலீஸ் புரூட்டாலிட்டி பத்தி, அந்த மர்டரை பத்தி பேசுறாங்க. ஆனா அதே தூத்துக்குடியில வந்து within a week or in a week's time, 4 people died. 4 of them are Dalits. And manual scavenging, அதுல வந்து கேஸ் லீக் ஆயிருக்கு. அந்த இதுக்குள்ள வந்து மலைக்குழிக்குள்ள அவர்களை இறக்குனது வந்து தப்பு. Manual Scavenging Abolition Act வந்து சொல்லுது that's a crime, they are not supposed to. ஆனா பட் அந்த ஓனரை வந்து அரெஸ்ட் பண்ணுங்கன்னு சொல்லல. Hardly 1 or 2 media only reported about it, and they are also young people, all 4 of them, like, no, less than 20 years of age. 20 வயசுக்கு கீழ இருக்கறவங்களா இருக்காங்க, இல்ல like 20, 21 இருக்காங்க. சோ அந்த 4 பேரை பற்றி இந்த பொது சமூகம் ஏன் கவலைப்படல அப்படின்ற ஒரு கேள்வியே வருது. So I think I mean, we cannot be so selectively outrageous. என்னோட கண்ணுக்கு மீடியா வந்து இது ஒரு விஷயம் சொல்லுச்சுன்னா அதுக்காக மட்டும் நான் போராடுவேன். ஆனா அதை தவிர சுத்தி என்ன நடந்தாலும் நான் அதை வந்து கடந்து போயிடுவேன் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு நம்ம இருக்கக்கூடாது. So marginalization is happening every now and then, as you know, like, you know, Dalit women are raped, even a small child is being raped. We don't talk about it unless and otherwise, like, no, media wants us to protest, we protest. Otherwise, like, we remain to be in mute. So I think it's important that at least the people who are taking part in the discussion la irukakudiyavanga la vandu romba progressive people who really wanted to bring some sort of a change. Radhika used to discuss about the wanting to involve youth, young people in politics, no, politicizing them. So it's important that we need to be conscious of what is happening around and not be selectively outrageous as the media dictates us. So with this, I stop.
You know, I think you are so right in saying media chooses what should be made news these days. First, you know, there are so many levels of filtering to news. First, the government chooses what should become news. Then the media chooses what should become news. Then the opinion-making class, like us, we decide what should become news. So what actually becomes news is probably a constructed reality rather than reality itself. Very sad state. You know, I'm very thankful that you brought up the fact that, you know, these questions of why certain people should talk about caste. Why should a privileged person talk about caste? Why should Semmala talk to Radhika? But today's conversation is exactly about that. You know, in every section of politics, we have somehow practiced some kind of exclusion. Politics from actually meaning an inclusive space has gone on to become a very exclusive space, mostly because of, you know, the privileged segments. But how do we now understand this exclusivity is what triggered my interest in organizing a conversation like this. So you know, the question first I want to pose to you is, why is it important to speak about gender, patriarchy and feminism when we speak about caste? Because caste, everyone, you know, when I say caste, our Kadiroda நம்ம conversation நடத்தும் பொழுது ரொம்ப நேச்சுரலா patriarchy பத்தி அவர் பேசினாரு. He said casteயும் patriarchyயும் பிரிச்சு பேசவே முடியாது. And anybody who is in the academic space of caste will understand its intersectionality. But in general, நம்ம காஸ்ட பத்தி பேசும்பொழுது எதனால why is it important to speak about gender, patriarchy and feminism?
Yeah. As you rightly, like, that should be the introduction that you start with it, Radhika. What is the nexus? Like, why what is the connection between this feminist point of view or like, no, patriarchy and caste? So I always, like, even when I teach, social work in my college where I'm teaching, I tell this to my students also. So we cannot see this problem in isolation. I'm sure Radhika should be aware, but for the audience, like, I'm just telling. So there is a difference between, like, the feminist movement emerging in a Western point of view and the feminist movement which emerged here in India. So, like, I'm not telling, like, patriarchy is, like, so peculiar to Indian context. No, not definitely. ஆணாதிக்கம் அப்படின்றதே வந்து இந்தியால மட்டும் தான் இருக்குது அப்படின்னு இல்ல. ஆனா ஒரு விஷயம் புரிஞ்சுக்க வேண்டிய ஒரு விஷயம் என்னன்னா, ஆணாதிக்கம் இந்திய சமூகத்துல இருக்கிறதுக்கும் சாதிக்கும் நிறைய தொடர்பு இருக்கு. There's a strong connection between caste and patriarchy in Indian society. So even to quote, we have even now we have proof that Meghalaya we have matrilineal societies. Kasi tribe is, like, no, matrilineal, matriarchal society. அப்படின்னா அங்க வந்து women வந்து ஃபேமிலியோட ஹெட்டா இருக்காங்க, ஹெட்ஷிப் அவங்க கிட்ட இருக்கு. And the last daughter of from that family is getting married to a man, and that man comes to that girl's family. Right. So there is no concept of, like, இங்க நம்ம சொல்ற மாதிரி பிராமணிக்கல் patriarchy வந்து ப்ரோமோட் பண்ற டவுரி சிஸ்டம் இல்ல அந்த மாதிரி விஷயங்கள் எதுவும் இல்லாம, the man is coming to this girl's family and then staying, and then property is also being transferred to that. So that is one example, and we can quote. There are a lot of scholars who have written, Kerala irukkiradha patti people have written about it. So which means, like, no, the Aryan invasion, which we need to really keep it as a benchmark. So post Aryan scenario, the social structure is, like, no, lot of change is happening, and how women is being viewed is coming from the Vedic text. How women has to be viewed is coming from Manusmriti. So which we are actually conveniently denying. And I'm almost every time I'm critical about this feminist movement, which is actually not engaging with this conversation on caste itself. When patriarchy is discussed in Indian society, Indian feminist movement is so conveniently discussing only about male dominance, only about masculinity, but not actually making a connection. ஆனா இங்க வந்து வர்ணாசிர தர்மம் என்ன சொல்லுது, பெண்கள் எப்படி பார்க்கணும்னு சொல்லுது வர்ணாசிர தர்மம், ஆர் மனுஸ்மிருதி என்ன சொல்லுது அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, it is actually oppressing women in all dimensions. Why education was denied to women? In a real sense, like, Dalits and women were having a same equal status like a Shudra. Dalits did not have, in the whole Varna system, Dalits place illa outcasts or untouchables. But Shudras kuda you can equate. Equally, they are, like, no, have to be go through all sorts of humiliations, like a Shudra has to go through: denial of education, denial of having a property, right? They did not have a right to, you know, like what happened in Travancore, Tiruvangur Samasthanas, women were not even allowed to wear cover their breast. So there was a breast tax movement. So we have that kind of history, and it is post Aryan invasion. It is post Brahminical culture, which is invaded, indigenous culture, which was predominantly matriarchal, which had equal rights for women. For instance, like, quoting my own example, என்னோட வீடு, என்னோட குடும்பம், அந்த அமைப்பு அதிலே பாத்தீங்கன்னா கூட, my father is the one who taught cooking to my mother. என்னோட அப்பா தான் வந்து அம்மாக்கு வந்து சமையலே கத்து கொடுக்குறாங்க. So there is no specified gender role, like, no, only women should cook or women should do this அப்படின்றது இல்ல. அதே மாதிரி இன்னைக்கு வந்து ஆணாதிக்க சமூகத்துல வந்து என்ன சொல்லி தராங்கன்னா, மென்சுரேஷன் அப்போ விமன் வந்து 3 நாள் 5 நாள் கிச்சனுக்குள்ள வரக்கூடாது. That is actually, like, no, they are imitating. Sanskritization is a concept which we might be familiar with. So அப்ப ஒரு மேல் தட்டு இல்ல ஒரு அப்பர் காஸ்ட் வீட்ல வந்து விமனை வந்து ஒரு தீட்டா பாக்குறாங்க அப்படின்றது வந்து is not practiced in Dalit families. I wouldn't say, like, all Dalit men are protectors of Dalit women. No, I'm not coming to that point. But definitely Indian patriarchy oda residual effect has been on the indigenous community, including Dalits and Adivasis. Even Adivasis la kuda ipa dowry vaangura oru culture vandu irukku. When we travel and go to the Adivasis communities, it is predominant. So the connection is like, this patriarchy is an effect of Varna system, is an effect of Aryan invasion. It is an effect of Vedic culture, which has invaded this Indian culture.
I think when I traveled to Rajasthan, I was able to see this very clearly in the sense communities so the Sanskritization, upward mobility, we are able to clearly see. In Tamil Nadu, because we don't have very visible physical differences. For instance, நம்மளுக்கு அந்த கூங்கட் போடுற பழக்கம்லாம் இல்லாததுனால caste வந்து ஒருத்தர் பார்த்தோனே சொல்ல முடியல. But in Rajasthan, you can see somebody and you can tell which caste they belong to. Everything from the hairdress that they wear to the clothes that they wear is very different. So as you become upward mobile, you are becoming more and more patriarchal. You're falling into the patriarchal system. You are covering your face. You are not speaking in front of men. So I think as a young privileged Savarna person, it took me that journey to identify gender within a caste system initially. I think that's where my second question comes from. What is Dalit feminism? Because a lot of us don't necessarily engage with that concept. Feminism concept இப்பதான் ஒரு 5 வருஷமா popular ஆயிட்டு வருது. So Dalit feminism, when I mean this, I don't mean it as feminism didn't exist. I only mean it as because of the advent of social media and young people engaging in social media, a political concept like feminism has become accessible to a larger group of young people. So in that context, what is Dalit feminism and what made you take up that feminist role in your life? We would like to listen to your story.
Okay. So one is like, as you pointed out, Radhika, like this whole reason behind like conceptualizing things, like we talked about Sanskritization, we talk about feminism, and then we talk about Dalit feminism. So it's actually beyond only conceptualizing a thing. It's lived experience. It's a subjective matter which has to be understood. So this notion, actually, the feminism பெண்ணிய பார்வையை புரிஞ்சுக்கணும் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறது வந்து again Western feminism, Western privilege section அவங்க பேசுற feminism, அதுல இருந்து நான் இதை புரிஞ்சு இதை நான் imitate பண்றேன்றதுல இருந்து வருது. So as I said, like there was no need to talk about feminist point or rights even in a marginalized family. It was so natural, it was so obvious, like it was quite natural that we don't have to really fight for it. So even my own family, it's not like I've been listening to my own student year before, one student passed out. She was telling அந்த ஸ்டூடெண்ட் என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா, நான் எங்க வீட்டுல வந்து பேசணும்னா எங்க அப்பாவும் அண்ணாவும் இல்லாத டைம்ல தான் நான் என்னோட கருத்தையே சொல்லணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்றாங்க. So she comes from a like OBC Shudra caste only. I do this analysis also, like how this whole point of equality, women equality, students கிட்ட எப்படி இருக்கு அப்படின்னு பார்க்கும்போது we make this assessment also. So but எங்களோட வீடுங்கள்ல எல்லாம் அப்படி கிடையாது. When we feel something is wrong, I tell my father on the face, even it is my brother or whoever it is. So I don't think like we are trying to frame it with the academic point of view of like understanding feminism. It's just a lived experience. That is how we live, and like it's a subjective matter. That is number one. But understanding the whole Dalit feminism, how does it actually differ from feminism? I would like to really respond to it. So as I already said, like the people who talk about feminism, as I said earlier, they talk about the patriarchal order, men are oppressing me, and all sorts of things. The whole notion of Dalit feminism comes from an Ambedkarite point of view of annihilation of caste, which is the grounding thing. I really wanted to point one question to all the people who are engaged in the mainstream feminist movement. Is like, how many of the feminist movement have really engaged with Ambedkar in a real sense? இங்க இருக்கக்கூடிய பெண்ணிய அமைப்புகள் எவ்வளவு பேர் வந்து அம்பேத்கரை உள்வாங்கி இருக்கிறாங்க? நான் ஏன் இந்த கேள்வி கேட்கிறேன், அம்பேத்கர் ஒரு ஆண் தானே அப்படின்னு வேணா வருவாங்களே ஒழிய, they actually undermine the efforts of Ambedkar. Ambedkar resigned his law minister post just because he was favoring for Hindu Code Bill. And as you all know, Hindu Code Bill was vouching for all the rights of women. விமனோட ஈக்குவாலிட்டிக்காக அவங்களோட லைக் இன் டர்ம்ஸ் ஆஃப் மேரேஜ், இன் டர்ம்ஸ் ஆஃப் டிவோர்ஸ், இன் டர்ம்ஸ் ஆஃப் அடாப்ஷன் எல்லாத்தையுமே காம்ப்ரிஹென்சிவா கொடுத்த ஒரு ஹிந்து கோட் பில்ல பீப்புள் வேர் ரெசிஸ்டிங். அண்ட் யூ ஷுட், ராதிகா ஷுட் பி அவேர், லைக் even RSS was fighting against it. It was even women were part of that fight actually. So Ramlila groundல வந்து ஹிந்து கோட் பில் வேணாம்னு சொல்லிட்டு including the upper caste women were fighting and resisting was what was Ambedkar was proposing. Even at that point of time, even before Republic, when Ambedkar was fighting for defending for the rights of women, which has a very comprehensive legal instrument, parliamentல பாஸ் பண்ணணும்னு நினைச்ச ஒரு விஷயத்த எவ்வளவு ஃபெமினிஸ்ட் மூவ்மெண்ட் வந்து எடுத்துட்டு போயிருக்காங்க for younger generation. So we don't do it actually. And as I already என்னோட இனிஷியல் கான்வர்சேஷன் சொன்னது போல, சாதி அப்படின்ற கட்டமைப்பை கேள்வி எழுப்பாம ஆணாதிக்கத்தை மட்டும் நான் கேள்வி எழுப்புவேன் அப்படின்றது வந்து இன்னைக்கு ஒரு சாத்தியம் இல்லாது. அது வந்து ரெண்டுமே தொடர்பு. நீங்க ஃபர்ஸ்ட் கொஸ்டின் ரொம்ப அழகா கேட்டீங்க. அது வந்து தொடர்பான ஒரு விஷயம். It is a connected thing. It is a interconnected thing which we are not doing it. So இதுல வந்து நம்ம பிரிச்சு பார்க்கணும் தலித் ஃபெமினிசம் அப்படின்னும் போது, the feminist movement is actually not counting the subjective experience of Dalit women, wherein like for example they are stuck with the body politics, which I'm so critical about it. No, of course I have right to wear what I want to wear. எனக்கு என்ன dress போடணும், நான் எப்படி தலை வாரணும், நான் எப்படி சிரிக்கணும், நான் என்ன பண்ணணும், நான் என்ன சாப்பிடணும்ன்ற உரிமை வந்து எனக்கு இருக்குது. ஆனா ஒரு தலித் womenோட எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து it is not only limited only with what I wear or what I drink or what I do. It is beyond that. It is so structural. We have to really fight for our own right in terms of acquiring property. We have to really resist this whole larger caste system or varna system. We have to work for annihilation of caste. இந்த மாதிரி விஷயங்களெல்லாம் பெரிய ஸ்ட்ரக்சரான விஷயங்களை அண்டர்மைன் பண்ணிட்டு just limiting only with the body politics, like no, I want to smoke, I want to drink, I want to dress up this way. அப்படிங்கிற feminist point of view வந்து Dalit feminism is actually differing. So as I said, like no, it's a real subjective lived experience of Dalit women which is undermined by this whole feminist movement. So இப்போ ஒரு landlord கிட்ட ஒரு Dalit woman வேலை செய்றாங்கன்னா, she's been sexually exploited not just because she's a woman. She's been sexually exploited because that landlord, the upper caste landlord, thinks that she can have right over the body of a Dalit woman. அவங்க தலித் பொண்ணுன்றதுனால அவங்களுக்கு கேள்வி கேட்க யாரும் வரமாட்டாங்கன்றதுனால அவங்கள வந்து பாலியல் கொடுமைக்கு துன்புறுத்தலுக்கு ஆளாக்கக்கூடிய அதிகாரத்தை அந்த லேண்ட்லார்ட் எடுக்கிறாரு கையில. So there is a difference between the patriarchy that the feminist movement is talking about and the difference between like what a Dalit woman really wants to speak. Just wanted to, if people are from the academic circle, they might be very much aware about what Sharmila Reke talks about, and the Gopal Gurus, like Dalit women talk differently. So this caste blindness has been one critical element of the whole discussion that we need to talk about the whole Dalit feminist point of view. So that struggle of Dalit women is definitely different from the larger privileged Savarna women who's fighting for the rights against masculinity or patriarchy or whatever. So it is actually it is taking Ambedkarite stand. Dalit feminism actually taking Ambedkarite stand, which means it is actually uprooting the Hindutva order. It is actually uprooting the caste system. So in that sense, Dalit feminism differs from the larger feminist.
Very beautifully answered. I think it naturally sort of answered my next question also, which was if the Indian feminist movement is, inclusive and has space for Dalit and Adivasi voices. The question of whether it is intentional exclusivity or not is a whole different thing. But before I reach there, over the past couple of years, especially, I think since 2017, repeatedly when Black feminists have spoken, we've heard references made to words like white feminism, and it has helped the Black feminist movement to carve a space for themselves, both within the feminist movements, as well as the larger human rights movements, as you pointed out. So in India, is there a way to how do we achieve that space, especially for Dalit and Adivasi women? Is there some sort of a manner in which Dalit feminism is trying to identify the Brahminical feminist approach, calling it, how does this work? How do we bring in that inclusivity in the feminist movement and the larger human rights movements?
Okay, one thing is of course we need to, we should not put the onus on the Dalit feminist movement as such. In a sense, as we always question, when atrocity is taking place, we immediately question, what is this Dalit MP doing when this atrocity took place? Which means as though that has to be questioned only by the Dalit MP. So that happens very commonly in Tamil Nadu. They ask ஒரு தலித்துக்கு எதிராக ஒரு வன்முறை நடந்த உடனே இந்த தலித் எம்பி என்ன பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு, அவர் மட்டும் எம்பி ஆயிட்டாரு அப்படின்னு ஒரு கேள்வி வருது. அந்த அதே ஒரு பார்வையில இருந்து பாக்குறேன், தலித்துக்களுக்கு எதிராக வன்முறை நடக்கிறது வந்து சாதிய கொடுமையினால நடக்குது. அந்த சாதியத்துக்கு வந்து ஒட்டுமொத்த சமுதாயமும் பொறுப்பு எடுக்கணும். So they have to take responsibility on their shoulders because it is the largest society which is discriminating Dalits. In that sense, like, how can we really bridge this whole feminist movement, or how can we be inclusive? It's a right point. As I initially starting sonnadhu pola, not that Dalit feminists wanted to be excluded or have to be in isolation. Of course, all of us are working for building an egalitarian society. எல்லாருமே ஒரு சமத்துவத்தை நோக்கி போகணும் அப்படின்ற ஒரு எண்ணத்துல தான் நம்ம எல்லாமே பயணிக்கிறோம். That's the reason we are having this discussion and all. So one thing is like, engaging with whatever is happening in the lives of Dalit women or Dalits is very, very, very important in terms of, I wouldn't undermine, like, not that there are left movement which has taken up a lot of atrocities. We cannot adu vandu edume pannala appdin solla mudiyadhu, kandipa solla mudiyadhu. But the only thing is, I'm critical about this larger feminist movement is like, how many larger feminist movement have recognized the leadership of Dalit women? That is one hard hitting question which always lingers. என்னோட மைண்ட்ல அடிக்கடி வரக்கூடிய ஒரு கேள்வி அதுவா இருக்கு. சோ அப்போ ஒரு தலைமைத்துவத்துக்கு வந்து ஒரு தலித் விமன் வந்து இந்த ஃபெமினிஸ்ட் மூவ்மெண்ட்ல வரும்போது கண்டிப்பா இது வந்து ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா நடக்கும். What you are expecting, like, it doesn't have to need ஒரு proposed or structured thing அப்படின்னு இல்லாம organically that will happen. Like, that can also politicize a lot of people, that can also understand the pain and sorrows and all the, like, violence that is taking place against Dalit women could be understood by larger people. When these feminist movements are not allowing Dalit women to take up a leadership position, which means there is something wrong with their attitudinal or whatever. Like, they wanted to really not to leave their privilege, or not to, wanted to maintain that hegemonical power structure. Like, அதை எப்ப விட்டு கொடுத்து ஒரு தலித் பெண்களோட தலைமைத்துவத்தை வந்து ரெகக்னைஸ் பண்ண நினைக்கிறாங்களோ அது ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா நடக்கும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். As I already pointed out, தலித் ஃபெமினிஸ்ட் மூவ்மெண்ட் என்ன பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு ஒரு கேள்வியை கேட்கறத காட்டிலும் இந்த ஃபெமினிஸ்ட் மூவ்மெண்ட் இதை பண்ணா நல்லா இருக்கும் அப்படின்றது வந்து என்னோட பார்வையா இருக்கு. But of course, personally, there are a lot of perspectives on this Dalit feminism. A lot of people try to own, like, this should be like this only அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு சொல்லக்கூடிய விஷயங்கள் இருக்கு. As I said, Sharmila Rege has written in EPW, அதனால அவங்கள படிக்கும் போது நிறைய விஷயங்கள் தெரியுது. But personally, from Ambedkar point of view, even Ambedkar was working with a lot of Brahmins also. Ambedkar was also trying to democratize people. So Dalit feminism அப்படின்னு நம்ம பேசும்போது எல்லா பொதுஜனங்களையும் வந்து ஜனநாயகப்படுத்தணும், என்னோட கஷ்டத்தை அவங்களும் புரிஞ்சுக்கணும், ஏன் கூட அவங்களும் பயணிக்கணும், which includes non-Dalit women, which includes even Dalit men. So I actually wanted to put forth this point, like, very recently this kind of conversation is really picking up where because it's a residual effect of like larger feminist movement. நான் மென்ன மட்டும் எதிர்ப்பேன் அப்படின்ற ஒரு பார்வையில இருந்து இங்க இருக்கக்கூடிய தலித் பெண்களே பேசும்போது தலித் ஆண்கள் வந்து எங்களை வந்து ஒடுக்குறாங்க, அதை பத்தி யாருமே பேசுறதே இல்ல. தலித் ஆண்கள் ஒடுக்குறதும் வந்து நாங்க வந்து ட்ரிபிளி மார்ஜினலைஸ்ட் அப்படின்னு. அஃப்கோர்ஸ் marginalized, I'm not denying to that fact. தலித் ஆண்கள் தலித் பெண்களே ஒடுக்குறாங்க, அதை வந்து இல்லைன்னு சொல்லவே இல்லை. ஆனா அதை வந்து ஸ்ட்ரக்சரா நம்ம புரிஞ்சுக்க வேண்டிய விஷயம் என்னன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, that is an effect of Brahminical patriarchy. பார்ப்பனியத்தை உள்வாங்கின தலித் ஆண்கள் அந்த தலித் ஆண்களாவே அவங்க இருக்கிறாங்க. இப்ப இளவரசனோட 7 வருஷத்தோட நினைவு தினத்தை வந்து நம்ம யோசிக்கிறோம். அப்ப இளவரசன் யாரு? இளவரசன் is a Dalit boy. So we cannot equate those who killed இளவரசனை கொன்ற கயவர்களையும் இளவரசனையும் ஒரே நேர்கோட்ல வந்து நம்ம வைக்கவே முடியாது. சோ அப்ப தலித் விமன் வந்து பேட்ரியார்கிக்கு வந்து பேசும்போது எனக்கு ஆணாதிக்கம் வந்து எனக்கு வந்து ஒரு பெரிய இடையூறா இருக்கு அப்படின்னு நம்ம பேசும்போது, தலித் ஆண்களோட ஒரு சாலிடாரிட்டியோட இருக்கும் போதுதான் நம்ம அம்பேத்கர் ஐடியாலஜில வந்து சாதி எதிர்க்க முடியும். We can only annihilate caste when we include Gokul Raj, when we include Ilavarasan, when we include Shankar. So who killed Gokul Raj? Who killed Shankar? Who killed Ilavarasan? So it is a system. We have to really be conscious about, like, no, it is a structure which is being created. We are not against Brahmins. Definitely, I used to share this with Radhika. We are not against any individuals. So of course, as we said, like, we've been traveling with myself and Radhika have been traveling with a lot of things that we are doing, a lot of progressive things we've been planning. அதுல வந்து நான் சாதியை எதிர்க்கக்கூடிய பார்ப்பனர்கள் எவ்வளவு கூட டிராவல் பண்ணிருக்கேன். I have a lot of close friends who have supported a lot of things that I'm doing. So we at no point Dalit women or Dalits can be against individuals, but we are against the system. We are against a Brahminical system which is oppressing. which is wanting people to be as slaves. தலித்துக்களை அடிமையாய் ஒடுக்கி நான் வச்சிருக்கக்கூடிய மனநிலையை தான் நம்ம எதிர்க்கிறோமே ஒழிய அந்த மனநிலையை உள்வாங்கின ஆண்கள் தலித் ஆண்களா இருக்கிறாங்க. So but solidarity is needed from women, solidarity is needed from Dalit men also. So in my understanding, we can Dalit feminists can actually have this approach, then only we can largely fight against the Brahminical ideological, that's a warfare. We can only resist with this solidarity. Otherwise we are only minuscule, little voice that I cannot, this whole conversation actually will lead to it. That's what I'm hoping for.
It is very simplistic to say, to look at anything in society as black and white. I don't think feminism or caste is either or situation. It is so intersectional that you have to look at multiple layers, and not one person at any given point in time will get everything right. There are some people who get some things right and some people who don't get those things right. So beautifully explained in Ambedkar's work. Democratizing people, I think, is the key to shifting that onus that is squarely placed on people who face marginalization to fight marginalization. And this is a critique that I have repeatedly voiced even about the larger progressive movements in India, that we are constantly asking those who are already got a weight over their head to stand up and fight. We are never really telling the oppressor that you are the oppressor and you need to stop. Exactly. And that shift of onus will only begin when we understand the process of democratizing people. Yeah. And rightly put, there are degrees of patriarchy within caste, and the murders of Ilavarasan or Gokul Raj or Shankar clearly elucidates to us that patriarchy was the cause of their death. They are also victims of Brahminical patriarchy that exists within the caste system. Despite being men, they are dead today. So patriarchy is not just men versus women. It is a larger structural issue, and I think you beautifully explained that to us. Because we spoke about Dalit women leadership, I would like to bring, நம்ம பெண்களை முதன்மைப்படுத்தி அவங்களுக்கு தலைமை பொறுப்புகள் கொடுக்கும் பொழுது நிறைய structural changes ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா நடக்குது is truth. Every movement has talked about it, but no movement has implemented it 100%. So I would like to talk about Dalit women in political spaces. The lack of their presence itself says a lot. But let us go a little deeper. Why is this still such a struggle, and what do you think needs to happen to create that political space and leadership for Dalit women?
Yeah. As you rightly pointed out, unless and otherwise we've been given the leadership position, we cannot bring any change. I mean, it's just tokenism madri நாங்களும் வச்சிருக்கோம் அப்படின்றது கிடையாது. I mean, when leadership, they have all authority to take the decision how to shape this whole thing. Even interestingly, I was just reading another piece where it says even in containing this COVID pandemic, countries which had women leadership was able to do well than men who are president or prime minister or whatever. So I mean, that was quite interesting. Actually, they were giving statistics on it. How did they contain this whole pandemic thing? So as you said, I mean, Tamil Nadu ஒரு example எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா, of course we cannot deny works of Periyar. Periyar has extensively done a lot of things. That's the reason North Indiaக்கும் South Indiaக்கும் especially Tamil Naduக்கும் பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு significant difference இருக்கும் in terms of women's education, in terms of but political space அப்படின்னு வரும்போது Periyar movementல there were a lot of women. There were also Dalit women as such. But the later Periyarists, how did they actually take those values? It's highly questionable. So Periyar gave a very straight answer, don't even believe a man who's fighting for the rights of women. But ana Periyar movement la irukkudiya ஆண்கள் என்ன மாதிரி மனநிலையில இல்ல பெண் தலைமைத்துவத்தை என்ன மாதிரி எடுத்துக்கிறாங்க அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு கேள்வி இருக்கு. So I mean, not to critique about the people, but rather ஒரு ப்ரோக்ரெசிவா இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு மூவ்மெண்ட் எல்லாமே இப்படி இருக்குது. Then coming to politics, there are also things which are so structural, which is also a reason. I cannot keep blaming only men. அது வந்து men இருக்கிற ஹெட் அவங்களால தான் விமன் வந்து வரல அப்படின்றத தாண்டி இங்க வந்து ஒரு ஸ்ட்ரக்சரலான விஷயமும் நம்ம புரிஞ்சுக்க வேண்டியிருக்குன்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். பெண்களோட கல்வி அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா அவங்க கல்வி மறுக்கப்படுது. விமன் எஜுகேஷன் இஸ் பீன் denied due to the structural system, due to this Vedic culture or Manusmriti, which is dictating that women is not supposed to get education. So in the பெண்களோட கல்வின்றது இங்க தமிழ்நாடு எடுத்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா 12th standard வரைக்கும் it's free education. Lot of girls who come topper, but getting into university pathina it's very less in number. Yeah. So till date the so called progressive Tamil Nadu kuda women oda education romba kammiya irukumbodhu, and again the kind of poverty stricken stage of Dalit women la, it's a hand to mouth situation for them. They still don't own a land. So nammaloda crime record la pathina, the crime records ena NCRB vandu solradhu enna, those women are the one who are mostly affected. Dalitlaye vandu romba most affected in the Dalit women. They've been raped, they've been molested when they come to public space. Okay, so இந்த ஒரு புரிதலோட பாக்கும்போது என்ன ஆகுதுன்னா பொது வெளிக்கு பெண்கள் வர்றதுக்கு வந்து நிறைய structural problems இருக்கு அப்படின்றது நான் புரிஞ்சுக்கிறேன். So there are a lot of structural issues which are there. So women are not able to come to public space itself. Then coming to political space அப்படின்றது again that becomes a challenge. So we need to have that also in mind, which is so structural. And also in terms of conscientizing or sensitizing, இங்க இருக்கக்கூடிய தமிழ்நாடு வந்து முற்போக்கான ஒரு மாநிலம், ஏன்னா இங்க வந்து திராவிட கட்சிகள் வந்து ரொம்ப நாளா இருந்தது அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு இருப்பாங்க. Of course, as of now we need to resist right wing politics. We need this Dravidian political ideology. We are not denying to that fact, but in reality these Dravidian political parties have relied largely greatly on caste vote banks, which we cannot actually undermine. So caste vote bank மையமா வச்சு இல்ல அத ஒரு ஆதாரமா வச்சுதான் மாறி வந்து ரெண்டு திராவிட கட்சிகளும் வந்திருக்கு அப்படின்னும் போது இந்த கட்சிகளை வந்து பெண்ணிய பார்வையில நீங்க பாருங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்றது வந்து it's again a challenge in terms of I mean I'm just quoting Tamil Nadu, though it is a larger national group which is attending. Tamil Nadu in the Nalavana, you have to imagine what is happening in other places. So again in a Dalit political party and ஒரு question வரலாம். Even in a Dalit political party, the representation of women is very less. As I already said, there is also a structural issue where women coming to a public space becomes a challenge, and that too for a Dalit woman it is quite challenging because she has to tackle with the issue of poverty, she has to tackle with the issue of accessing higher education and all sorts of things. But again, there is a larger need for these Dalit political parties should also get into this awareness mode, that they have to create leadership for Dalit women, which I will not deny it in a real sense. But other national level Dalit political parties la edume solradhukku vandu illa, they have actually bowed down to the right wing political pressure that they have la. So they have gone in align with right wing political ideology. But there is a need for Dalit women getting into leadership, especially in the Dalit political parties. We need to work on it actually largely. We need to work with the people who are little sensitive about it. We can work with them.
Right. And I think it makes a lot of sense if we understand the basic structural issues. Then it is much easier to understand why leadership is a further away dream. It's not as simple as saying today, oh, we have 10 Dalit women who are educated, let's make them leaders. I don't think it's as simple as that. And because you spoke about right-wing politics, I think it will be very interesting for all of us to understand what it is like to be, for Dalit women under the fascist regime, like the BJP government and the larger right-wing politics that exists in India today. It is also creeping into our own Dravidian parties. I understand that we need Dravidian parties to stand up for our, to fight the right-wing politics here. But sometimes we often feel like many of the ideological things that the right-wing politics picks up on, Dravidian parties are also picking up on. So what is it like to be for Dalit women under a fascist regime? Anyone who's read Ambedkar can understand how casteism could have very well been a stepping stone for the larger fascist build-up. World over, there is dialogue about how fascism could can very easily take from casteism to work on oppressive, ideologies. But in today's political climate, the fight is firmly against fascism. Even the progressive politics that's fighting right-wing politics is against fascism. They're not necessarily openly against casteism. So how is this hurting the marginalized, especially Dalit and Adivasi women?
Okay. So as you said, like, no, I mean, we have to also think about what is happening right now. Like, like before this lockdown, like, you were also part of that CAA, anti-CAA protest and arrest and all these things. So in this larger scenario, like, the second tenure of like right-wing politics, which is getting stronger. So I will just quote examples from Tamil Nadu itself. Earlier, as you said, like, it's a Dravidian political land. இது வந்து பெரியார் மண் இங்க வந்து எதுவும் நடக்காது அது இதுன்றதுலாம் வந்து எவ்வளவு நாள் நம்ம இது மாதிரி பேசிட்டு முடியும்ன்றது எனக்குமே புரியல. பீயிங் அ தலித் ஹியர் அட்லீஸ்ட் ஒரு 90s early 90s எல்லாம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா there was a lot of consciousness among Dalit youth that they have to resist, retaliate against their oppression. That is because like SCST Prevention of Atrocities Act அதோட ரூல்ஸ் வந்தது, அது வந்து இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ண வந்தாங்க. சோ அதனால அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு கான்சியஸ் நடந்தது. இன்னைக்கு இருக்கக்கூடிய வலதுசாரி அரசியல் சூழ்நிலையில தமிழ்நாடுல என்ன நடக்குதுன்னா, there are strong pockets here in Tamil Nadu where right-wing political ideologues are working so systematically. They are working in Adi Dravida welfare hostels. They are very strongly working through celebration of Ganesh Chaturthi, and they are trying to mobilize these Dalits because they know it is a vote bank. இவங்க வந்து ஒரு easy vote bank அப்படின்றதுனால they are consciously systematically working among Dalit youth. The major struggle here in Tamil Nadu, in understanding the context of like why there is no resistance against this right-wing politics here in Tamil Nadu. For Dalits themselves to understand that they are enslaved is a challenge. So I was just talking to another student some 2 days before she was doing her PhD in some Canadian university. I was just trying to explain the same thing. For a black student, it is pretty easy to explain the enslavement. Wherein for a Dalit, the attitude or servitude mentality and அடிமை மனநிலையிலிருந்து ஒரு Dalit யூத் வெளியில கொண்டு வர ப்ராசஸே வந்து ரொம்ப இப்பதான் பிகின் ஆயிருக்குன்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன் தமிழ்நாடுல. So there are majority of Dalit youth are not politicized enough in terms of understanding their oppression itself. அவங்களுக்கு எதிரா சாதிய வன்முறையோ கொடுமையோ இந்த சாதிய கட்டமைப்பையோ புரிந்து கொள்ளக்கூடிய ஒரு நிலையில வந்து எவ்வளவு percentage of Dalit youth இருப்பாங்க அப்படின்றது தெரியல. So in terms of how this is infiltrating into their lives, it is easily infiltrating actually. Right. So there is no hard I'm resisting. Maybe peripherally we can talk about this is Periyar man, this is Dravidian Dravida man அப்படின்லாம் சொல்லலாம். ஆனா அவங்க ரொம்ப சிஸ்டமேட்டிக்கா ரொம்ப நீட்டா they are working that all these non-politicized Dalit youth are captured by the right-wing politics in the name of, you can name anything. அவங்க வேற பேர் வச்சுக்கிறாங்க அதுக்கு. Even now people are talking about friends of police and all. So they work in different identities, but the ideology is same. So in the context that the greater challenges before Dalits and especially people like us who are trying to mobilize Dalit women or Dalit youth and all, the greatest challenge is to really politicize them to understand what is that great fear or threat which is coming to destroy their identity அப்படின்றது ஒரு பெரிய சேலஞ்சா இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். So being a Dalit woman, as you know, if a Dalit woman is being raped, if a Dalit woman is being molested, at least earlier police stationக்கு போனா ஒரு FIR ஃபைல் பண்ணா ஏதாவது நடக்கும் அப்படின்ற ஒரு நம்பிக்கை இருக்கு. இப்போ என்னன்னா it's like a Kaap Panchayat, it's like a Katta Panchayat. They wanted to really reduce or just to eliminate that kind of case which is coming up against Dalit women. So what happened to Asifa, all the marginalized women for that matter. So I think being a Dalit woman in this kind of right-wing political regime is quite threatening, quite challenging. And what happened in Gujarat riots against Muslim, it's the same situation actually. So Dalit பெண்களுக்கு எதிராக என்ன வன்முறை நடந்தாலும் இனிமே நீதி கிடைக்குமா, நீதிமன்றங்கள்ல வந்து அது இது வந்து நம்மளுக்கு நீதி கிடைக்கிற ஒரு இடமா இருக்குமா அப்படின்ற ஒரு கேள்வியே வந்து வருது. I'm so disappointed with the honor killing case which came up on Kausalya's case. So அதுமே பாத்தீங்கன்னா, so she's not a Dalit woman, but still we have to stand in solidarity with Kausalya because she wanted to break this Brahminical patriarchal Varna order. she had the right to choose her partner, and that is the reason she was Shankar was murdered. So அந்த ஒரு புரிதலோட பார்க்கும்போது பாத்தீங்கன்னா கண்டிப்பா women coming from marginalized background will be quite challenged in this regime.
You know, if Kausalya's case is not one of feminism, I don't understand what can be. Because right to choice is a very principled feminist fight. You know, we've all been taught that as feminists, we must stand for our right to choose. And when Kausalya chose her life partner and he was brutally murdered because he was Dalit, and she was attacked because she married a Dalit man, if we are not able to pierce that screen and raise our voices in support of such an issue, then both every kind of political system in this country today is denying caste, and you know that is becoming more and more clear to me every day. And that's probably what is motivating me to constantly, despite all the criticism, continue to talk about caste even from my privileged standpoint. You know, one of the things that I've always noticed is you have a lot of interesting opinions and take on popular culture on your social media feeds. I've read your reviews of movies, you talking about artists, you know, their engagement with caste and caste politics. In the last decade, you know, Indian pop culture has been very representative of feminism, at least larger Brahminical feminism. We've been representative. Women have been portrayed in strong roles. Women are becoming producers and directors, and they're making collectives to stand for women in cinema, or any other art form for that matter, has become very accepting of feminism. Would you say that it has been able to represent Dalit women at all? And could you know, this is a question from a colleague. She's also asking, would you be able to suggest artists, literature, movies that we can look at to understand Dalit women in popular culture?
Okay. So, in terms of larger mainstream media, as you know, the portrayal of women itself, I don't think we need to explain how women are portrayed. Women are just portrayed as an object. So that is there. So at least Tamil cinema eduthitta adula pathina kuda how women have been portrayed again like a body, like a structure appadha portray pandranga. Especially when it comes to portrayal of Dalits, we can specifically talk about women also, how they be portrayed pathina not in a very respectable manner. All these days in Tamil cinema, you can quote any number of movies which has not really projected the assertiveness of a marginalized, assertiveness of a Dalit vandu portray pannala. Of late, very recently, some of the movies, very recently it is and our culture ipo enna varudna, we can also talk about assertion of Dalit assertion can also be portrayed in a mainstream cinema kind of thing. So that's a very positive, good move, I feel. So it requires a lot of understanding also in terms of in the same movies, like projection of women was also equally little challenging, equal to men, or some movies which are portraying women, for instance, like movie Aram, which doesn't have hero at all. How a women collector is really addressing the societal problem and all sorts of things. So it's a good positive things which are happening in a recent day in Tamil cinema.
Is there participation of Dalit women in Indian popular culture? Because avangala portray pandrathu oru vishayam, but avangaloda participation in creating art, in creating literature, in creating popular culture, what do you think about that?
I don't think so. There are a lot of things which has to be done in terms of I always think when I try to organize the marginalized women whenever for meetings and other stuff, I always think in this dimension. There should be academicians who can really talk about and then evolve something where they can build their leadership. Similarly, people in this field of art, literature, or music, whatever, we need to think of some collective, where they can really create their own space. Obviously, Dalit women have to create their own space. We are also working on something which we might come up in a couple of weeks, where we wanted to really identify women from different disciplines. So when I talk about, I have a very good friend and colleague who actually learned Parai after she, after the post graduation, அவங்க ஒரு Parai artist ஆகி she wanted to train a lot of children. So when I used to talk to her, we used to always discuss like, why don't you start your own Parai school? Being it's been run by women. You can train a lot of children and all. So she's also quite happy about it. And so that, I think like the women who are trying to do all sorts of things against resisting against atrocity and all, those Dalit women also should also think in terms of celebrating the leadership, or recognizing a lot of women who are coming forward. So for instance, we were trying to recognize lyricist Uma Devi few years before. So in this larger mainstream media, for a person like Uma Devi to really sustain with the mainstream cinema is quite challenging. So we as Dalit women, we organized one event where we wanted to recognize work of Uma Devi for a lot of songs, popular songs that she's written. So I think when the Dalit women are coming to the larger public stage should do this consciously, then we can do it. But as of now, I don't think there is any structured effort that there is recognition. We need to really start working on it.
I think before I again ask you for a list, maybe a reading list, or what we can watch to understand Dalit women and Dalit penniyatha purinjikradhukana sila vishayangal, if you can point us towards that right direction. I also want to talk about this idea of cultural assertion. It's a dichotomy, at least in the larger context of progressive politics. It's a dichotomy because on the one hand, we've for many decades understood certain cultural practices as identities of the oppressed, and hence we've told them adella vittidunga, we don't want to do any of it. And on the other hand, today's assertive politics, especially in Tamil Nadu, I've seen that asserting that oppressed identity to destigmatize it has been a very strong tool. நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி பறை அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு இசைக்கருவிய வாசிக்கிறதுல அவங்க ப்ளே பண்றதுல ஒரு அசர்ஷன் ப்ராசஸ் இருக்கு, அந்த ஐடென்டிட்டியை அசர்ட் பண்ற ப்ராசஸ் இருக்கு. That is very vocal of your own identity. So for women, Dalit women, what does this cultural assertion look like? What will it be like to culturally assert themselves?
Okay, so as I said, like cultural assertion if we think like in terms of understanding a conceptualized feminism or definition of feminism for a Dalit woman, as I said, like culturally oppression within families ரொம்ப minimal தான். Only the Dalit men are imitating the culture of upper caste, then there is oppression. Otherwise, I am talking about my own grandma, way back. அந்த காலத்திலே பாத்தீங்கன்னா அந்த கல்ச்சரல் அசர்ஷன்றது நான் ஒரு ப்ராஜெக்டா அதை நான் இப்படி பண்றேன் அப்படின்றது இல்லாம அது ஒரு இயல்பாவே அது இருக்கிற ஒரு விஷயமா தான் இருந்தது. In terms of questioning be it father or husband or whatever, in terms of having equal roles at home was already existing. So nothing like we need to build this அப்படின்றத விட, so it was a matriarchal society or culture which was already existing. As I said, நம்ம indigenous communities பாத்தீங்கன்னா matrilineal culture எல்லாமே இருந்திருக்கு. The only thing is Dalit women have to recognize it, rather than Dalit women should not imitate the so-called privileged culture or இதுதான் my relatives கூட பாத்தீங்கன்னா எங்க குடும்பங்களையே பாத்தீங்கன்னா my relatives, my cousins இவங்கலாம் கூட they think if they imitate imitate the Brahminical culture, then they feel like that's a feel good factor for them. They don't want to really celebrate this assertive culture which was already existing. நம்மளுக்குள்ளேயே நம்ம குடும்பங்கள்ல தலித் குடும்பங்கள்ல ஆல்ரெடி இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு assertive culture recognize பண்ணாங்க. We wanted to imitate what they are doing. So I think our culture was already imbibed. Assertiveness was already there. At least in my own family, I have experienced the same. I used to question my father straight on his face. No, I did not have any no challenge or I have to be.
Which is amazing because with all my privilege, okay, I am a product of patriarchy. I, thankfully for my mother, I was able to break out of it. But I think in general, most privileged families teach girl children to be submissive, swallow our pride, swallow our opinions. So in the recent times, the stories that I'm hearing from Dalit friends reiterates how important liberty is to a woman, in the society. And I think it's, I want to remind everybody who is watching to send in your questions. Very soon we will start taking questions from the audience for Semalar. So you can type out your questions in our comment section. We have friends who are collating them and putting them here. You can also send it to us on other platforms in case you're there. Please make sure if you're watching a watch party and not the direct feed, please send your questions to our direct feed and not on the watch party, because we won't be able to keep track of it. I want to, before I move on to, audience questions, my last question to you is, we have met repeatedly when larger political movements have taken place in India. For instance, when Me Too happened, we met. Immediately when Me Too was happening, Rajalakshmi's brutal murder happened. And we've had conversations of this, but I think it's important to have it in public today. Have the larger women's rights movements in India, whether it is fighting Nirbhaya, whether it is #MeToo, have these movements ignored violence against Dalit women? Have we ignored and not included Dalit atrocities and violence against Dalit women in these movements?
Of course, yes. As you said, like we have had an informal discussion on this. Like, we've been. I have been critical about why these movements are not really taking up. Of course, I wouldn't say like all the mainstream feminist movement are caste blind. I wouldn't agree to that point. They have taken up a lot of issues at a lot of occasions. But when this whole Me Too thing happened, as you already said, it was only people who are so popular, people who are so privileged, people who are coming from this elite background were able to be so vocal, and still they can. They could just lead a public life or a normal life or whatever. But these feminist movement did not actually make a conscious effort in terms of identifying how Dalit women have been sexually harassed or been molested or whatever. So I think there is a lot of disengagement with the Dalit women by this larger feminist movement, and that is the main reason. And many of these feminist movement who are leading, people who are heading, are coming from a privileged section who are literally caste blind, who don't actually look into these things. So just undermining the intersectionality, Dalit women-க்கான பாலியல் துன்புறுத்தலை அங்கீகரிக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு நிலைமையில கூட அவங்க இல்லைன்னு தான் நான் நினைக்கிறேன். அவங்க இந்த பிரச்சனைகளை தான் பிரச்சனைகளா அவங்க பார்க்கறாங்க. They don't talk about Nandini, they don't talk about Rajalakshmi. So and again, as you said, media ஒரு விஷயத்தை பெருசா பேசினாங்கன்னா அதை இந்த மூமெண்ட் எடுக்கிறாங்க. Rather, as you know, we were just organizing that protest on a rainy day for Rajalakshmi. There was hardly the mainstream media which was reporting. And we had one of the reporters who's the chief of one popular news channel who came to our college. He was telling he had a lot of pressure not to put Rajalakshmi's case. He wanted to do it, but he couldn't do it. So I think this feminist movement is also largely picking up some popular cases, which doesn't actually
reflect reality.
Baseline issue of the identity of Dalit.
Right. So we've started getting questions from members who are participating on Facebook. So the first question is from Guru Saravanan Manoharan. He asks, how can we train and include the concept of Dalit feminism inculcate the concept of Dalit feminism amongst the elected local government representatives, especially in Tamil Nadu? So how can we train government representatives to inculcate Dalit feminist concepts?
Okay, so actually local government representatives have to be inculcated with this whole structural problem that they are facing. As I already said, like, you know, எப்படி Dalit youth வந்து அவங்களோட பொலிட்டிக்கல் ஐடென்டிட்டியோ அவங்களோட ஐடென்டிட்டி பேஸ்ட் ஆப்ரேஷனை வந்து ரெகக்னைஸ் பண்ணாம இருக்காங்களோ, ஒட்டுமொத்த தமிழ்நாட்டில் இருக்கக்கூடிய கவர்மெண்ட் ரெப்ரசன்டேட்டிவ், நான் கவர்மெண்ட் ரெப்ரசன்டேட்டிவ்ஸ் ஆர் நாட் ஆக்சுவலி அவேர் ஆஃப் வாட் இஸ் ஹேப்பனிங் அரவுண்ட் தெம் அப்படின்னும் போது, அந்த ஸ்ட்ரக்சரல் பிரச்சனையை அவங்க புரிஞ்சுக்காத ஒரு மனநிலையில இருக்கும் போது, மேக்கிங் தெம் அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்டிங் த தலித் ஃபெமினிசம் இஸ் பிட் சேலஞ்சிங். But of course, I mean, since ஒரு strategy கேக்குறதுனால, I have always had hope that we can bring change in the society. So I believe in working in small groups, like, you know, even in a grassroots level, even if there are 20 people who could be mobilized in a particular village, of course we can work through that group. If somebody is asking a question, if they wanted to bring change in their respective community, that person can really think of mobilizing at least 10 or 20 people, sensitize them, and they are the one who are actually, I mean, rooted in the community. They are from the grassroots. Through them, we can really bring change. I mean, there could be inclusion of men, women, young people, everybody.
Great. Okay, so the next question is from Swarnamalya. She's asking, while speaking of blanket homogeneity of feminism as a problem, do you also see a problem when Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi narratives are created as umbrella views of feminism? How would you create a nuanced difference between Dalit, Bahujan, and Adivasi realities? You spoke of the need of difference in Brahmin or Savarna feminism versus Dalit feminism. Hence, this question to understand if the problem runs more complexly and if on the ground you have trouble when working with Dalit women and their issues specifically. So Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi, the separation in their issues, and that's what she's asking.
You mean to say, like, you know, there is no homogeneity in their own identity itself?
Is that homogeneity a problem, is what she's asking? Should we be more nuanced in approaching their individual problems, or, you know, is it okay to homogeneously you know, account them as Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi feminism?
No, I wouldn't agree to that point, actually. In a sense, like, you know, this homogeneity, in terms of identifying homogeneity, நாங்க எல்லாம் ஒன்னாதான் இருக்கிறோம். இப்ப பாத்தீங்கன்னா இங்க தமிழ்நாட்டுல, just wanted to put one example, like, you know, நாம் தமிழர் அப்படின்ற ஒரு ஐடென்டிட்டிக்குள்ள நம்ம எல்லாரும் இருக்கணும் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி சொல்றாங்க. நாம் தமிழர்னா கூட நம்ம சாதியா பிரிஞ்சுதான் இருக்கும். We've been divided in terms of caste identity. So this Dalit, Bahujan, Adivasi solidarity could be built, but that is not a homogeneous group, actually. Understanding the difference, I will work with you.
Right.
Will be honest thing. So of course the problem of Adivasi who is residing in the remote villages of Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, and the problem that they are facing is not similar to the problem that Semmal is facing here in Tamil Nadu. So my problem is different, their problem is different, but there is a need for building solidarity between Dalit, Bahujan and Adivasi, and also women and Dalit feminist movement. So, but in terms of understanding, I'm different and you're different, but we will work together for destructing this oppressive culture. Will be honest.
So there is definitely a need for more nuanced arguments when it comes to fighting on the ground. I don't think I agree with you. அடுத்த கேள்வி வந்து சிவச்சந்திரன் அப்படிங்கிறவர் கேட்டிருக்காரு. தலித் பெண் செயல்பாட்டாளர்கள் பெரும்பாலும் NGO அரசியல் செய்வது போல் உள்ளனர். எந்த ஒரு தலித் அரசியல் கட்சியும் கூட பெரும்பாலான தலித் ஃபெமினிஸ்ட் ஆக்டிவிஸ்ட்களை களால் ஆதரிக்கப்படவில்லை என்பது கருத்து. இது குறித்து உங்கள் கருத்து என்ன?
Okay, so Sivachandran has asked two questions. Rendu questions. One question, first question என்னன்னா, like civil society movement or non-governmental organization அப்படிங்கிறது, இதுக்கு வந்து ஒரு சின்ன historical background இருந்ததுன்னா, like I think it will be appropriate to answer நினைக்கிறேன். Why there is lot of NGO identity with Dalit feminism or Dalit women who are coming in அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, lot of these NGOs who have been working like, you know, early 90s ல இருந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா, there was no conscious effort. இப்ப வந்து caste பத்தி ராதிகா வந்து ஒரு சீரீஸ் நம்ம டிஸ்கஷன் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னும் போது, early 90s ல வந்து that was picking up, and lot of non-governmental organization was taking it to the international platforms also. So be it Durban Conference or taking it to the level of UN, United Nations la kuda racism third க்கு கீழ வந்து சாதிய பாகுபாடு வந்து dissent அப்படின்றதுல வந்து நம்ம பார்க்க முடியுமா அப்படிங்கிற ஒரு பார்வையில early 90s ல வந்து இருந்தது. So mostly that early 90s thing was like, no, as an effect of NGO வந்து நான் கவர்மெண்டல் ஆர்கனைசேஷன் எடுத்த ஒரு மூவ்மெண்டாவோ ஒரு இயக்கங்களாவோ இருந்ததுனால அதுல இந்த பெண்கள் நிறைய பேர் இருந்தாங்க. அதுல வந்து தலித் பெண்கள் நிறைய வந்து ட்ரெயின் ஆக்கப்பட்டாங்க. சோ அதனால அந்த என்ஜிஓ ஐடென்டிட்டின்றது இருக்கு. அகைன் தி அப்கமிங் மாஸ்டர்ஸ் இன் சோஷியல் ஒர்க் MSW கோர்ஸ் வந்து ரொம்ப பாப்புலரா அதுக்கப்புறம் ஆனதுனால நிறைய பேர் அதை எடுத்ததுனால அதுல வந்து ஒரு கெரியர் ஆப்ஷன் வந்து NGO. So a lot of women have taken up that, and that is also the reason for Dalit women getting into. Not that I wouldn't. Of course, a lot of NGOs are making money. They've been critical about NGOs have not taken up the real cause. அதெல்லாம் ஒரு பக்கம் இருந்தா கூட more donor related or funding related அவங்களோட activities இருக்குது அப்படின்னு சொன்னா கூட we cannot undermine their work அப்படின்னு நான் பார்க்கிறேன். At least in terms of annihilation of caste. Even right now we have a lot of Dalit headed organization which is taking up atrocity cases. For instance, last week you had conversation with Evidence Kadir. So they are documenting that thing. I am part of organization Social Awareness Society for Youth, and I'm part of their work that they are doing. They are based at Dindivan. அவங்களே தலித் அட்ராசிட்டிஸ் வந்து எடுக்கிறாங்க. ஒரு சிஸ்டமேட்டிக்கா எடுக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு வேலையை பார்க்கும்போது நம்ம பொதுவா NGO அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து ஒரு NGO அரசியல் அதுல வந்து நம்ம அதை வந்து புறக்கணிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. I have a different opinion on that. Of course, they have done a lot of work in terms of internationalizing, politicizing this whole thing. Even SCST Prevention of Atrocities Act oda amendment kondu vandadula vandu National Campaign on Dalit Human Rights took a instrumental role in it. Adu one irukku. அதே மாதிரி தலித் பொலிட்டிக்கல் பார்ட்டில விமன் இல்ல அப்படின்னு கேட்டிருந்தாங்கல்ல. செகண்ட் क्वेश्चन
இல்ல அவங்க ஆக்டிவிஸ்ட் தலித் ஆக்டிவிஸ்ட் கூட தலித் பொலிட்டிக்கல் பார்ட்டிஸ் இது பண்ணல ரெகக்னைஸ் பண்ணல அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி கேக்குறாரு. Most Dalit feminist activists do not support any single Dalit political party. What is your opinion on this?
Okay, so largely national level la pathina, of course Dalit women activism வந்து it's not been largely recognized அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு சொல்லலாம். But still we had Mayawati, who was the chief minister of the largest state, Indian state அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு சொல்லலாம். That is, I mean, self-made person தான் அவங்க in that sense. தமிழ்நாடு எடுத்துக்கிட்டீங்கன்னா எவ்வளவு தலித் பொலிட்டிக்கல் பார்ட்டி இருக்கு அப்படின்ற ஒரு கேள்வியை வந்து நான் எழுப்ப வேண்டி வரும். I'm so critical about the Dalit political parties here in Tamil Nadu and their role in terms of resisting Hindutva political ideology. Except for Viduthalai Sirthaigal, which is actually taking a lead role in terms of resisting ஹிந்துத்துவத்தை வந்து எதிர்க்கக்கூடிய ஒரு வேலையை செய்யற தலித் பொலிட்டிக்கல் பார்ட்டி ஆல் அக்ராஸ் இந்தியாவே பாத்தீங்கன்னா இன்னைக்கு வந்து விடுதலை சிறுத்தைகள் மட்டும்தான் இருக்காங்க. அது தமிழ்நாட்டிலயும் அவங்கதான் அந்த வேலையை பண்றாங்க. சோ மத்த பொலிட்டிக்கல் பார்ட்டி எல்லாம் வந்து தலித் ஆக்டிவிசம் விமன் ஆக்டிவிசம் வந்து எடுக்கிறாங்களா அப்படின்னு இல்ல. பட் இன் மை கான்வர்சேஷன் வித் லாட் ஆஃப் ஒர்க்ஸ் தட் ஐ ஹவ் டன் அலாங் வித் some of the people with VCK, I have also been placing this on record. அவங்களோட பொலிட்டிக்கல் பார்ட்டில வந்து they should have strategy in terms of bringing Dalit women leadership அப்படின்றது வந்து எனக்கு என்ன கான்டாக்ட்லாம் இருக்கும் அந்த கான்டாக்ட்ஸ் மூலமா வந்து சொல்லிட்டு தான் இருக்கும். There is a higher need that Dalit women activism has to be backed up, and Dalit women atrocity cases have been taken up by VCK, which we cannot deny it.
Right. So அடுத்த கேள்வி வந்து சந்தோஷ் அப்படிங்கிறவர் கேட்டிருக்காரு. The question is, what is your take on the movie Kala, especially the woman protagonist in it?
Okay, of course, as I said earlier, portrayal of women in mainstream cinema has always been so negative, like object or porula or இதுவா தான் பாக்குற ஒரு பார்வை தான் இருந்திருக்கு. பட் காலால வந்து அந்த character portrayal of that daughter characterல that was so amazing. That was giving a ஒரு நல்ல மொமெண்டமா இருந்தது அதை பார்க்கும்போது கூட. when everybody would have thought அங்க வந்து ரஜினியோட ஒரு பையன் தான் வந்து ஃபைட் பண்ணுவோம் அப்படின்றது வந்து நம்ம காலகாலமா பார்த்துட்டே இருந்திருக்கோம். பட் அதுல பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு டக்குன்னு ஒரு ட்விஸ்ட் இருக்கும். ஈவன் assertive, strong women.
Okay, so the next question is from Priyadarshini. Priyadarshini Chinnaraju is asking, how important is it to bring Dalit women together and come out as a solidarity voice in this contemporary political context?
Sorry, I just missed it. Sorry.
How important is it to mobilize Dalit women together and come out as a solidarity voice in this contemporary political context?
It's very, very important actually. That's a reason, as I was informally when I talking, I was just telling, I'm also trying to mobilize a lot of Dalit women and at least create a space, create a stage for them to speak let them speak from wherever they are coming from, whatever work that they are doing. அது வந்து மேனுவல் ஸ்கேவஞ்சிங்க்கு எதிராக வேலை பார்க்குற பெண்களா இருக்கட்டும், கையினால் மலமல்லும் பெண்கள் வந்து இருக்கிறதுலே ரொம்ப they are the most marginalized even among Dalit. So how many of the Dalit women movement are actually recognizing it? அதை எத்தனை women recognize பண்றாங்கன்றது. So அந்த எல்லாருமே ஒரு கிரிட்டிசிசம் தலித் மூவ்மெண்ட் மேலேயோ இல்ல இது மேலேயோ வைக்கிறது என்னன்னா, இவங்களுக்குள்ள உற்சாதி பிரிவினை இருக்கே, அதை இவங்க வந்து அட்ரஸ் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்றது ஒரு கிரிட்டிசிசமா வைக்கிறாங்க. Of course, as I said, like, Brahminical patriarchy நால Dalit men எப்படி Dalit women oppress பண்றாங்களோ, இந்த உற்சாதின்றது வந்து it's an effect of Varna system. நான் அதை நம்ம recognize பண்ணணும். So all these Dalit women should come into one platform. At least in this Dalit women leadership, we can really annihilate all these problems, like the other problems. So there is a higher need that the Dalit women have to come in one platform, and they have to we have to build our own leadership, we have to build our own stage.
The next question is from Malar. Malar is asking, Dalit students are practicing Brahminical patriarchy in colleges and other public places to overcome their psychological inferiority complex. What is your opinion on this?
Of course, as I said, like earlier, na sonnadhu pola Dalit youth வந்து politicize பண்ணி sensitize பண்றது வந்து ஒரு சேலஞ்சிங்கான விஷயம். ஒரு ஒட்டுமொத்த சமுதாயமே ஒரு மாதிரி யோசிச்சுட்டு இருக்குன்னும் போது கொஞ்சம் மாத்தி யோசிக்கணும் அப்படின்றது வந்து இட்ஸ் மாப் கல்ச்சர்னு சொல்லுவாங்கல்ல. சோ ஒரு privileged culture தான் இட்ஸ் a normal culture அப்படின்றதுனால people also go through a lot of psychological barriers in terms of openly declaring their identity. So identity crisis is a major problem. We cannot put the blame on the victim as such. ஏன் அத அந்த ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸ் வந்து பண்றாங்க அப்படின்ற ஒரு உளவியல்ல இருந்து பார்க்கணும்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். அந்த ஸ்டூடெண்டால ஏன் ஓப்பனா தன்னோட ஐடென்டிட்டியை வந்து டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ண முடியலன்னா, லார்ஜர் சொசைட்டி அந்த ஸ்டூடெண்ட் டிஸ்கிரிமினேட் பண்ணுவாங்க, ஆர் தட் யூத் ஆர் whoever it is. Even for instance, like a lot of government employees who got through their government post through reservation. So reservation வச்சு வந்தவங்க ஏன் அவங்களோட ஐடென்டிட்டியை மறைக்கிறாங்க, பீச் IAS ஆஃபீஸர் யாரா இருந்தாலும் மறைக்கிறாங்கன்னா, we cannot again put the blame on the victim. The society has not given the feeling for them, ஒரு ஃப்ரெட்டர்னிட்டியோட you are also my brother my sister அப்படின்ற ஒரு ஃபீலிங்க சமுதாயம் கொடுக்கும்போது இவங்களோட இந்த உளவியல் சிக்கல் இருக்குல்ல, தன்னோட அடையாளத்தை மறைக்கக்கூடியதோ இல்ல அவங்க பிராமணிக்கலைட் சான்ஸ்கிரிட்டைஸ்டா அவங்கள காட்டிக்கிறதோ, அந்த சூழ்நிலை வந்து மாறும்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். So it's a larger society should change.
So the next question is from Maitreya. Maitreya is asking, caste atrocities target Dalit women as victims. Please explain about whether feminism in general is aware of this, and why the feminists are not vociferous towards honor killing and atrocities against Dalit women. Especially because the data is so alarming. I think generally நம்ம இன்னைக்கு full concept of the conversation has been that.
Even I feel so.
So I think in a gist, if I can just step in, just largely being caste blind is something that all of us are very normal. It's a normal existential thing. நம்மளோட இந்தியால வந்து caste பத்தி பேசணும்ங்கிறது ஒரு effort. To be able to identify and speak of caste is an effort, and most of us are lazy to take that effort, A. And second, feminist movements have recognized caste and have recognized patriarchy. I wouldn't say no, but it's not probably prominent in their agenda. Within the Brahminical patriarchal system, we are also victims of the same Brahminical patriarchy. So that's sort of so அடுத்த கேள்வி வந்து John Bhupalan அப்படிங்கிறவர் கேட்டிருக்காரு. First, thanks so much for this conversation. Question: how does the feminist, within brackets he's asked, historically white or dominant versus womanist, historically black or non-dominant, difference inform Dalit feminist debates? So on the white versus black conversation in the West, how does it inform the Dalit feminist movement here?
Of course, as I said, larger feminist movement, white feminist movement வந்து as I said, like they were talking against resisting patriarchal order, masculinity, இத பத்தி பேசிட்டு இருந்தாங்க, body politics பத்தி பேசிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. But black women were talking about racism, which is actually keeping them as slaves, and they are talking about their history, their identity. their cultural assertion that they are doing. So it goes hand in hand. So as you said, like, cultural identity la pakumbodhu, here also Dalit women are so assertive naturally. அவங்க வந்து இயல்பாவே வந்து Dalit women வந்து not like the other women. So அப்படி பாக்கும்போது we can always draw a lot of connection between Black feminist movement and Dalit feminist movement. So because the thing that they are resisting is structural. It's not individualistic. Wherein like white feminism mostly comes or emerges from like, no, என்னோட husband வந்து என்னை treat பண்ணிட்டாரு, so I wanted to choose a different life, I've been like, the violence பத்தி அந்த மாதிரி பேசுறாங்க. But rather this is talking about so structural, which is racism and casteism.
Right. So the next question is from Manivasagan Ramaswamy. In Tamil Nadu, there is a voice against issues based on varnas, but the same people keep silent when it comes to caste atrocities against Dalits. Likewise, men and women who glorify the role of Periyar in the liberation of women, but the same people keep silent when there is a Dalit woman who is raped or molested. How can we understand this mentality in the Periyarite man?
Okay. So அதுவுமே நான் பேசும்போது ஒரு point I just mentioned, of course, Periyar's contribution in terms of feminism in South India or especially in Tamil Nadu, we cannot undermine the effort. So இன்னைக்கு வந்து நம்ம இவ்ளோ progressiveness women கிட்ட இருக்குது in terms of surname, நிறைய விஷயங்கள் we can quote, அது இருக்கு. But again, Periyar movementல இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு men வந்து patriarchal menனாவே இருக்காங்க இப்பவுமே கூட. So அது வந்து நம்ம we cannot deny that. So they have to not only read Periyar, but rather they have to inculcate whatever he has, on the readings la enna irukko adha avanga practice pannanum na nenikiren. That's the challenging thing for any man.
And I think largely, just like how Ambedkar படிக்கிறவங்க எல்லாம் Ambedkarite ஆக மாட்டாங்க, பெரியார படிச்சவங்களோ இல்லனா பெரியார் அந்த தலித் திராவிட பார்ட்டிகள்ல இருக்கிறவங்க எல்லாரும் பெரியாரைட்ஸ் ஆயிட முடியாது. So it is an effort.
Yes.
நம்ம வந்து காஸ்ட வந்து அன்ஹிலேட் பண்ணணும்ன்ற அந்த கான்ஷியஸ் எஃபர்ட் போடும்போதுதான் அது நடக்குமே தவிர்த்து I think it's not an inherent given. Just because you read Periyar, you doesn't become anti-caste.
Exactly.
So there is one more very interesting question from Swarna Malya. She's asking, assertiveness of a Dalit woman, very interesting concept. Can you please throw some light on gender-based violence within the Dalit community? I ask because both Kadir and you speak of an assertive nature of Dalit women in general. Is she better equipped to handle gender-based violence? Notwithstanding the intersection of poverty and in the public space, does her Dalitness teach her some lessons in resilience about navigating gender-based violence?
Yeah, I'll just pick up from the last portion of the question that she's talking about. Of course, the resilience of Dalit women is contributing a lot in terms of looking into the contemporary thing. As in my earlier discussion, I was just talking about matriarchal society or matrilineal society, which automatically, culturally gives leadership to women. Adu oru pakkam irundha kuda, in a contemporary situation, if you just look into it, already Dalit women is actually facing a lot of things, which is also giving a lot of resilience within her. So not that I wouldn't say like, Dalit women are not ill-treated at all, or she is not vulnerable at all in Dalit families. அப்படின்றது வந்து கண்டிப்பா கிடையாது. But on a comparative note, I'm just putting forth this. When she is able to withstand this caste system from the landlord, when she is able to withstand this caste system from the larger society. For instance, I just want to quote this Ponparappi post-election violence which took place. We went as a team fact-finding, we went to that place and all. So there were a lot of Dalit women who were boldly coming and explaining what happened to them on that particular evening. So this is quite natural because they are so good in narrating why those men are coming and hitting, what kind of sexist remark that they were making when we want to go and vote அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க. So ஒரு political participation வரும்போது ஒரு women oppress பண்ணும்போது those women are able to naturally resist and then articulate. வேற அங்கேயே இருக்கிற men வந்து கொஞ்சம் பயந்தாங்க, ஏன்னா போலீஸ் இருந்தாங்கன்னு சொல்லிட்டு. Just to quote an example. So they have survived all this while. So I think as she herself answered in the last part of the question, so resilience is also like inbuilt, that they are able to resist against their own men in their own families.
I think, when you have very little to lose, you become resilient automatically. That's and somebody has made a comment, I think, saying that what is okay.
Raj, I just add to what Swarnamalia has also asked. So I mean, just to make everybody understand also. So why the patriarchal order or this ஆணாதிக்கம் வந்து ஏன் மேல்தட்டு மக்கள் கிட்ட or மேட்டுக்குடியில இருக்கிறவங்க இல்ல பார்ப்பனியத்தை உள்வாங்க மேல் ஜாதி கிட்ட வந்து அதிகமா இருக்கு அப்படின்னும் போது அந்த விமனுக்கு அந்த குடும்பம் இருக்குல்ல, அந்த ஃபேமிலி இருக்குல்ல, அந்த ஃபேமிலியில வந்து சாதியும் காப்பாற்றக்கூடிய ஒரு பெரிய கடமையை வந்து அந்த பெண்களோட தலைமையில வந்து வைக்கிறாங்க. ஏன் அந்த பெண்கள் வந்து அவங்களுக்கு இணையான ஒரு ஆணை வந்து சூஸ் பண்ணக்கூடாது, என்னோட லைஃப் பார்ட்னரா நான் வந்து ஒரு மென்னை சூஸ் பண்ணக்கூடாது அப்படின்னா அந்த சாதிய கட்டமைப்பை காப்பாற்றக்கூடிய ஒரு பெரிய பொறுப்பு அங்க இருக்கக்கூடிய பெண்கள் தலைமையில அந்த குடும்பங்கள் வைக்குது. பட் wherein for Dalit women it is not like that. So my own marriage is intercaste marriage. So I mean, I did not have that burden of protecting the caste system because I wanted to break the system. So in those families, like, no, I don't have this kind of like, no burden. Ayyo, enoda saadhiya na kaapathano, enoda kula perumiya na kaapathano, na poi vera oru saadhila kalyanam pannittana en kudumbam maada poida appala kediyadu. Now I encourage all my students also to marry out of their own caste. We did a lot of campaign within our college campuses also. So I think that should also be looked upon na nenikiren. Ena culturally inda kudumbangal vara soolnilala vandu saadhiyayum சேர்த்து காப்பாத்த வேண்டிய பொறுப்பு வந்து அந்த பெண்கள் மேல இருக்கு. For us, we wanted to break all the system, including patriarchy and caste.
What a beautiful way to explain. I've never thought of it this way. The burden of keeping that racial purity, burden of keeping caste alive is so casually put on women. And I think that explains very threadbare the patriarchy that women practice. Exactly. Women who are patriarchal in their approach it's because of their socialization. The larger caste is socialization, or racist socialization as far as race is concerned, makes them believe that they need to protect the honor. I always make this observation, if I can just take 2 minutes. When I went from Tamil Nadu to Rajasthan or Madhya Pradesh, I very clearly experienced two kinds of patriarchy. The first kind of patriarchy in Tamil Nadu is the kind that is scared of your equality, your ability to be equal. Okay, here, as you rightly pointed out, Dalit women, Adivasi women also largely, because we've had matrilineal exposure here also to some extent, can be very vocal. டப்புன்னு பேசிடுவோம், நம்ம அந்த கூங்கட் போடுற பழக்கம்லாம் கிடையாது. ஸோ சடால்னு ஒருத்தர் முன்னாடி பேசுறது இஸ் நாட் அ பிக் டீல். So the patriarchy that is here is the kind that wants to attack you, that wants to harm you, that wants to silence you. Whereas the patriarchy in a state like Rajasthan or Madhya Pradesh is the protective savior patriarchy. ஒரு பெண்ணுனா அவங்களுக்கு குரல் இல்ல, she can't take care of herself, ஐயோ அவங்கள பொத்தி காப்பாத்தணும். என்ன வந்து ஒரு பஸ் டிரைவர் வந்து, despite me telling him that this is my stop, he refused to stop there. He said, நான் நேரா கொண்டு போய் பஸ் ஸ்டாண்ட்ல இறக்கி விடுறேன், யாரையாவது வந்து கூட்டிட்டு போக சொல்லுங்க, 11 மணி ஆயிடுச்சு. So that sort of savior patriarchy. So patriarchy is not black and white. It's not one thing. It's not, and before we wrap up, I definitely want to ask you this question, and I think I've asked all my guests who've come. How do we build, as you rightly pointed out, democratic solidarity? As Savarnas or privileged people, how do we build? Are we supposed to be part of this caste annihilation narrative? If we are, how are we supposed to partake? What is the path for solidarity?
I think you initiating this whole process of caste conversation is a good start actually. So that's the reason I get inspired whenever when we wanted to work together, I get that inspiration. So as last time when we were doing this Rajalakshmi murder and the protest and all, PM Krishna showed his solidarity in terms of understanding this whole thing. So when people are so honest in checking their privileged position, it's pretty easy actually. So as I said, I'm also privileged in many sense. I don't have to carry somebody else's shit on my head. in that sense, like, no, I'm privileged. So when people keep checking their privileged position, be it men, women, savarna, avarna, whatever, so with that honest approach, when we really deal with this issue, I think it is possible to build solidarity. We cannot, as I was just answering to other question also, not diluting or undermining my emotions, my feeling that I have to build a solidarity with the other movement. So with my own identity, என்னோட அடையாளத்தோடயே நான் இதுக்காக தான் வேலை செய்றேன். I'm a Dalit woman, I'm a Ambedkarite woman, I wanted to annihilate caste, and you wanted to resist capitalism. Of course, we will also go hand in hand. Of course, landlord system is part of capitalism only. So with that understanding, with my own identity, not diluting my identity, if we are working together, it is possible. I think we can work. I mean, right now, since we all have to resist this right-wing political ideology, இந்துத்துவ சக்தியை எதிர்க்கக்கூடிய ஒரே ஒரு ஆற்றல் என்ன இருக்குன்னா, இந்த நம்மளுக்கான அந்த தோழமை இயக்கங்கள் இருக்குல்ல, இவர்களோடு சேர்ந்து பயணிக்கும் போது மட்டும்தான் அது சாத்தியம் நான் நினைக்கிறேன். அதர்வைஸ் நான் வந்து ஐ எம் அ பெரியாரிஸ்ட், ஐ எம் அ மார்க்சிஸ்ட், ஐ எம் அ அம்பேத்கரைட், நான் வந்து என்னோட இதுலதான் அந்த ஃப்ரேம்குள்ளதான் நான் ஒர்க் பண்ணுவேன் அப்படின்னு நம்ம நினைச்சோம்னா, I think we are actually losing many அப்படின்னு நான் நினைக்கிறேன். And I cannot expect, like, somebody who's coming to the field now only wanted to, I mean, coming from a privileged family, wanted to work for annihilation of caste na, அவங்க என்னை மாதிரியே யோசிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு நான் நினைச்சேன்னா, என்னை விட சர்வாதிகாரி யாருமே இல்லை. I'm so, like, I'm not democratic enough to bring democracy in somebody else's life. So I should also have a honest approach na நினைக்கிறேன். I really wanted to put forth of all the people who are listening, even to Dalits, like, we cannot always see Brahmins as antagonists. இவங்கதான் என்னோட எதிரி, நான் இவங்க கூட வந்து சேரவே மாட்டேன் அப்படின்ற approach is not right நான் நினைக்கிறேன். Of course, we have to take Ambedkarite ideology of fraternity, which we are not taking it largely. So building solidarity with the feeling of fraternity. So she is also working for my cause. I will make her understand, probably, if she's not able to understand my sufferings. அப்படின்ற ஒரு பார்வையில போகும்போது கண்டிப்பா நம்ம இதை பண்ண முடியும் தான் நான் நினைக்கிறேன். I have hope.
Thank you. I think hope is the word, and I'm so glad you reiterated that hope is possible. Thank you so much, Semalar. Before I wind up, என்னோட டீம்ல இருந்து repeated requests. We want suggestions on how we can expose ourselves to Dalit ideology, Dalit identity, Dalit political ideology, and Dalit feminism. So reading lists, movies that we can watch, things that we can listen to, anything that you can suggest.
So I would strongly recommend all of the Dalits, non-Dalits, everybody to read Ambedkar, which has, like, voluminous his own personal experience, அவரோட தனிப்பட்ட வாழ்க்கையில இருக்கிற விஷயங்களுமே வந்து. So I think we should begin with Ambedkar அப்படின்றது தான் வந்து நான் நினைக்கிறேன். And of course there are a lot of இப்போ பாத்தீங்கன்னா நிறைய documented works of Dalit women who have, like, taken up lot of leadership position அப்படின்றது. ஒரு last 2 weeks முன்னாடி கூட பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு தோழர் வந்து தலித் பெண்களோட பங்களிப்பு பத்தி ஒரு புக் ரீடிங் and then ஒரு நரேஷன் மாதிரி பண்ணினாங்க. So we did something on Annai Meenambal, so who's been a good leader, and also like, Jodi Venkatachalam, அவங்கள பத்தி தான் அவங்க பேசிட்டு இருந்தாங்க. So we can look women who are part of Justice Party la irundha women வந்து பார்க்கலாம், especially marginalized women வந்து நம்ம வந்து பார்க்கலாம். And contemporary இப்போன்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, like, as I said, like academic circle la pathina, Sharmila Rege, who's no more now, she has very rightly pointed out, like, and explained about Dalit feminism on the whole, and Gopal Guru substantiating on caste blindness and all, which we can really consider. But more than reading, I would honestly tell we need to engage with people na nenikiren, because reading is something, like, which we are not trying to understand a subject as such, rather, like, emotions and feelings, and, like, when there's atrocity, when somebody else is going, we can also take part, we can also contribute in it, like, I mean, it's quite challenging. So for a Dalit to go and stand in a place of atrocity அப்படினா, அது வந்து that's a வாழ்வா சாவா மாதிரி பிரச்சனை. இத வந்து நம்ம ஒரு டிஸ்டன்ஸ் பண்ணிக்காம, if we keep engaging with Dalit youth, people who are like, working on anti-caste, of course, since we are doing such planning for such things, we can always pull in them when we are taking some initiative. So that will be so real, that will be so, like, I mean, the real meaning of fraternity. அப்படிதான் நான் நினைக்கிறேன்.
Thank you so much, Semalar. It has been such a pleasure to have you on this conversation. என்னுடைய request உடனடியா ஏத்துக்கிட்டு to support and to constantly support me in my efforts towards my own journey of annihilating caste in my own personal life, as well as trying as much as possible to educate collectively, all my friends and family. Thank you so much for supporting me, and thank you so much for being here on this conversation. I'm really, really glad.
Okay, thank you so much, Radhika, for doing this. As I earlier startingly na sonnadu pola, for somebody who is coming from a privileged background, it's not their like responsibility. நீங்க இத பண்ணனா உங்களை யாரும் question கேட்க போறாங்க அப்படின்றது கிடையாது. So it comes so naturally, so honest, like that you want to do something to the society. So I think whatever efforts that we are also doing, we wanted to rope you in, like you in the sense your team also Ekpotli Reiki and other people who are working behind you. So we have to work together. So I think this is a very good start. I really wanted to appreciate you and your team for taking this initiative, especially during this lockdown. And I think like a lot of people have watched and it will definitely benefit a lot of them in terms of understanding Dalit feminist point of view. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I agree. My team is amazing. I want to thank everybody in the Young People for Politics and Ekpotli Reiki team for making each of these shows possible. We will continue to keep the engagement open. So if you have further questions for Semmalar, you can email it to us or put it on the comment box and we'll try and communicate it to her. We will also try and share more resources on how we can expose ourselves to Dalit politics. And before we wind up, I must again reiterate, it is fantastic that all of us have come in support for, in seeking justice for Jairaj and Benix. But the next time there is a Dalit atrocity or there is an atrocity against an Adivasi person, we must come out with the same amount of force. And that is when we are truly democratic in our rage. Selective rage is not going to help any of us. Thank you so much, everybody. Good night and stay safe in this COVID-19 situation.
Okay, thank you.